Bill McKibben, writing in the Times, they had an interesting piece where Bill McKibben had the opening. Obviously, the founder of 350.org, or one of them, and longtime environmental climate change advocate, organized the arrest over Keystone XL in front of the White House 2-3 years ago.
Didn't he also write one of the first, kind of mainstream or general audience books on the climate crisis, like in the early 90s or late
Very
80s
possibly.
or something? Yeah.
So today we had one report that last week, the journal Nature published 2 studies about a week ago of a new continent-wide survey of the Antarctic. And it shows that surface meltwater drainage systems are much more prevalent around the continent that was previously thought. And it suggests that the ice sheets in the Antarctic or ice shelves, are actually not as stable as we had anticipated. These ice sheets contain enough ice to raise global sea levels by nearly 200 feet if it were all to melt. Obviously, a partial melt would still be problematic. Researchers found nearly 700 drainage systems that formed during the summer melt season, some of which were found further inland and higher altitudes than researchers expected. These systems had been around for decades, and while some were stationary ponds, others were made up of streams that transported water for as far as 75 miles. It's huge, and it's been forming since 1973, and we didn't know about it. Here is just like a little bit of video of this. You can see this is like on the surface. And it's a problem. Just one of the many that are coming with global warming. But here's what Bill McKibben wrote in the Times. President Trump's environmental onslaught will have immediate dangerous effects. He's vowed to reopen coal mines, moved to keep the dirtiest power plants open for many years into the future. Dirty air, the kind you get around coal-fired power plants, kills people. Real people, the poorest and most vulnerable, will be hurt in real time. But there's an extra dimension to the environmental damage. We only have a short window to deal with the climate crisis, or else forever lose the chance to thwart truly catastrophic heating. In Paris in 2015, the world's nations pledged to do all they could to hold the rise of the planet's temperature to 1.5 degrees Celsius. It was a good idea since, though we're still half a degree short of that number. We're already seeing disastrous ice melts at the poles, loss of coral reefs, the inexorable rise of oceans, but at current rates of burning coal, gas, and oil will put enough carbon in the atmosphere for the next 4 years to eventually push us past that temperature limit. The planet's hope coming out of those Paris talks would be that we would see such growth in renewable energy that we'd begin to close the gap between what physics demands and what our political systems have so far allowed in terms of action. But everything Mr. Trump is doing should slow that momentum. The effects will not be felt immediately, but over decades and centuries and millenniums. No president will be able to claw back this time, crucial time, since we're right now breaking the back of the climate system. However, maybe you feel this.
I voted for the candidate who had a Green New Deal, so I feel proud of myself about that.
There you go. Just another one of Trump's accomplishments over the past 100 days. The assault on even the meager hope that we had. The good news is, though, is that Trump voters still feeling extremely optimistic. 96% say they would vote for him again. Only 2% said they would not vote for him again. Listen to some of these quotes here. Nothing's changed, said Rob Hughes, a registered Democrat and retired businessman from Bulger, Pennsylvania. Well, that's probably not entirely true. I think I like him more now that he's the president. They're unfazed. A new health care law is not in place yet. They're thrilled with the appointment of Neil Gorsuch to the Supreme Court, which is really actually the only rational response. They're dismayed that House Republicans and Democrats are unwilling to compromise. Robert Hughes, 71, picked up his gun phone from the gun range. These are all people that the reporter on the New York Post has spoken to before the election. I could not be more optimistic about the future than I am right now. Honestly, I'm still on cloud nine that he won and is our president. Mary Ellen Estelle, 77. Very pleased with Donald Trump so far. I'm very concerned about the fragile state of the world right now, but that was not his doing. That has been decades in the making.
And when you read his interviews where he, as an example, outlines his approach to dealing with North Korea, I think it gives you a certain sense of like, okay, there's challenges, there's dangers, but here's someone who's clearly poised and ready to take care of things.
It's all in hand.
It's all in hand.
Meghan and
Don't worry
A.J.
about it.
Hammonds, they were split on who they were going to vote for. They're both 28 years old. One was going to vote for Trump. Meghan was going to vote for Gary Johnson.
I don't like either of them.
Both had voted for Obama in the two previous presidential elections.
Oh, man.
Both were unsatisfied with his performance.
Right.
The final blow was the effect of Obamacare on their family. I don't know. It's
Maybe
not
high
clear on
premiums?
what that is.
Yeah. But those two are different.
You'll
potentially.
recall though, if you're age 28 today, before Barack Obama, before even 2014, you hadn't paid for your health insurance. You were on your parents' plan. Maybe. Turns out Meghan decided to vote for Trump a couple of days before the election. About their decisions, neither could be happier. He's doing exactly what we wanted and expected him to do. Yes, there have been setbacks, but anyone intelligent would understand that was to be expected. He's not a politician. I had no expectation of him to be anything but non-conventional.
You know, that's not a word, but what I love about these people is that the only ways in which he has proven to be unconventional is by being like genuinely mentally ill and
Yep.
clearly unable to do this job. In all other ways, he's just George W. Bush on steroids.
Well, maybe a little bit less effective, although...
Oh, no, I'm talking just policy-wise. I'm not talking efficacy.
Okay, so then you had Michelle Barnett. She didn't know what she was going to do. At the very last minute, I pulled the trigger for Trump. I just could not abide voting for those corrupt Clintons. So far, she hasn't regretted her decision. Up until the strike in Syria early this month, I was fine with how the president has been. Now I'll keep an eye on him. As long as that was not a sign of more interference in that country, I'm fine with that. But if he does start making this into the next Iraq, I'll be unhappy with him.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not.
No, that's someone who is gauging something.
Ridiculous.
At least they're
No,
citing
at
something
least they're
that's
yeah,
real.
they're citing something that exists in the terrestrial world.
Dr. Joseph Chiaro and his wife Donna were very reluctant Trump supporters when I met them at breakfast at the beautifully restored Nagel Warren Mansion in Cheyenne, Wyoming last fall. Son of immigrants and a retired pediatrician who still works part-time in the industry, Chiaro was staunchly opposed to Clinton than he was for Trump, so with his wife. Much has changed since their initial reluctance. I am 100% pleased with his performance so far. Yes, he's made some mistakes, but they are so minor that they are insignificant.
Totally. Just
The president has us heading in the right direction. I had my hesitations about him, but they quickly disappeared once he took office. Like, what could the hesitations have been?
I was concerned
Like,
that
what
when he
could they
came
be-
into
like,
office
honestly,
that
like-
he might have been like, I'm just kidding. I'm not really a mentally ill sexual harasser.
Honestly, like, what would have been like? I thought on day one he could get there and just go, I'm Hillary Clinton.
People are just
I
tied
like-
to those narratives. Like, I had this personal arc of coming to this. It's like, it's the same thing with Ben Carson. The content of their life isn't actually there to back these things up, but they like to say, I was this and then I
Right.
became that.
I
Because
was
it makes
very
them
concerned.
feel like they're more open-minded.
Yeah.
Like, I really
Right.
actually
That's
thought
what it
about
is.
this.
That's what it is.
And so I was dubious, but now that I've seen the facts,
I was very concerned that Donald Trump would turn out to be Hillary Clinton with a face mask. So
Now-
imagine my relief.
Among those living in the we all know that his approval rating is somewhere between 35 and 42, maybe, depending on which poll you look at.
I've not seen above 42.
Among those living in the second ring of suburbs outside the cities or the exurbs in the third or fourth rings that make up the great swaths of rural America, the president gets job approval rating between 53 and 59%. And, of course, you see that when it comes to Republicans more broadly. Hey, folks, the Majority Report YouTube page is in a bit of a crisis right now because of changes in their algorithms. Our YouTube revenue has been clobbered. We need your help. Just a couple of bucks a month would really help us out and keep this channel going. Head over to our Patreon page to find out more information. It's the URL is right here.